Hi, everybody. I just wanted to take a minute to go briefly over what is Level 3 for any new teachers or teachers who haven't taught this in a while. So if you've been in Level 3 sometime in the last year or even the last 2 years, you probably don't need to watch this. But Glennis and I want to have a meeting a little bit later in the week to make sure that everybody is on the same page with Level 3 and answer any questions that you might have. We've got some new teachers. But I always find those meetings to be rather difficult to take everything in. It's very hard to capture all that at once. Plus, it's going to be towards the end of the week, and you probably want to start thinking about that now. So this is just a very brief overview to Level 3. We'll start out with the materials. The principal material that we have is the iBook, and we've got 3 chapters. The chapters for Quarter 2 are going to be Places, Technology, and Time, and it is these materials are the ones that we have focused most closely on the assessments. And I'll show you what I mean with that in a little bit. And the iBook is unfoldable, which means that, as you go through here, you've got a bunch of these things and activities and whatnot, but there's a lot of different ways that you can use these that might not be, necessarily obvious at first glance. So you have all of these words are glossed. You have, these are widgets. I'm having trouble with my iBooks, and so all the widgets crash them. But, you get to this page, and it looks like one page, but all of these different buttons are actually activities that students can do. And many of them will take you to a website where there are, several different activities from there. So this being, Quizlet, and you've got your standard flashcards, you've got some writing practice, some spelling practice, matching, you've got games, things like that. Okay, and you've got your entire list of words down there as well. And that's what I mean by the iBook is unfoldable. And it may take you a little while to get used to that and just sort of click through it and find the different ways that it can be used. But, from this one page, you have, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 21 activities. And then when even when you click on those 21 things, you oftentimes will get taken to places where you have even more activities. So on that one page, there are perhaps 40 different things that you can do with your students to work on the vocabulary. We have 6 VTL lists, so there are 2 per chapter, and there's about 20 words per list, although that drops a little bit as we get towards the end of the quarter, and you'll see more like 18 words and things like that. We also have a Moodle page, and the Moodle page has been, I should have logged into this earlier. The Moodle page has been designed to match up with the course and it'll look a little bit different for you. It looks like this for me. And this is still Quarter 1 material, so you'll have some different material for Quarter 2. But you have VTL practice, you have reading practice, you have listening practice, you have CGE practice, things like that. One of the things that we have tried to do, let me just talk about the K Drive very fast. We always have the K Drive, and that's just a big sort of beautifully messy repository of all the stuff that people have created over the years. And we purposely have not touched that very much because people use it, and it just takes some time to learn how to navigate that. But there's a whole slew of stuff on there, and there's a bunch of stuff that you can adapt, all the Word documents. But you can find all of the iBook materials on the K Drive, and there's a duplicate to the K Drive on it's a Google Drive that we have, and you can access that through your iPads and off campus, which can be difficult with a K Drive. You'll get that link in the first email that I sent you sometime a little bit later. And then we also have some other supplementary materials. There's a reading and listening iBook, and then Kevin Bodwell and Alan Young have put together an entire spelling course called Spelling Champion. And there's an iBook to this that is on the file distribution site. And there's also a K Drive folder to this that has the same materials in hard copy format. So there's really a lot of stuff. You won't be able to use all this stuff, and you won't get through it. But just one quick word about this is one of the things that we've worked hard to do is to not duplicate these materials. So the stuff that you find in the iBook, and Moodle and the K Drive and even the Spelling Champion, unless it's very clear that it is a duplicate, 2 different formats, you shouldn't find too many duplicates. So when you send your students to Moodle, you're going to find distinct materials from what you might find on the K Drive or in the iBook, and we've tried to make that just so there's not as much redundancy. In general, the iBook has been the most closely vetted and focuses on the format of the finals and the CGEs, then Moodle, and then the K-Drive. So if you want to think about it as kind of a pyramid, that would be the best way to do it. If you need extra stuff, the teacher handbook has got all of the VTL lists. It's got a link to all of our online resources, and it has a detailed breakdown of the assessment, exactly what students will be tested on, how much time each thing will take, the question types, things like that. So if you want to wrap your head around level 3, especially the assessments, that is the best place to start. Of course, if you want to, if you deal better with people, you want a buddy, just ask. We're happy to set you up. We've got some veterans on the level as well, and everybody is generally very very open to helping. And of course, Glennis and I are always around. The door is always open. So if you need anything, just come and knock. I just want to spend a minute looking at the assessments. The first assessment that you're going to run into most likely are the CGEs, and I've got them listed here in two different ways. The VTL CGE and the Reading Skills Test CGE, but those will happen on the same day at the same time. And they'll happen one right after the other. So you can look at them as two different CGEs, or you can look at them as one CGE, as you wish. The format is two different CGEs. The students have to finish the VTL one, they exit out, and then they start the reading skills test. The CGE VTL is worth 10%, 50 questions. You can read all this on your own. I'll email this to all the teachers. Without a doubt, the most difficult task is the paragraph completion task, because you get into parts of speech and it's reading and things like that, and it takes a little bit more work. But the beauty of it is there are various different ways to approach answering those questions. Alan Young has done quite a bit of work on strategies for that, and those are on the K-Drive in the VTL folder. The reading skills test, there are two of them. The first one will be on skimming and scanning, couple task types, 20 questions total, and then reading for detailed understanding is CGE number 2, and there's one task type with 15 questions total. I would strongly recommend that. The VTL CGE, honestly, is pretty straightforward. It's not that difficult. You might want to look at the paragraph completion tasks, but the matching and the sentence completion, come on, these students have done this before. The reading skills test, though, is a little bit different, and that's where you might want to spend a little bit more of your time getting yourself prepared. The coursework grade is at your discretion. We do ask that you make at least half of the mark based on speaking, since this is the integrated course. And whatever you choose to do, we just ask that you make it measurable and defensible. Basically, if someone wants to look at your mark and say, all right, well, how did Shema get this? There needs to be a pretty clear answer to that. I'm not going to go into this too much in detail because there is, like I mentioned earlier, a detailed description in the handbook. And of course, Glennis will be sending out some more information as the quarter progresses. The final exam is going to happen in week 8, it looks like, for quarter 2. Of course, dates to be determined. It's worth 20%, and you've got listening and reading. All right, each have 30 questions, 3 tasks for listening, 2 tasks for the reading. The detailed breakdown of what is in the final exam, exactly what the listening types are, is in the teacher handbook, and I suggest taking a look at that and going over that bit. If you want to prepare your students for the assessments, there's several different ways that you can do it. For the VTL CGE, you can start off with the iBook. This breaks down the different parts of the CGE test. These are the paragraph completion ones, these are the sentence, and these are just the matching. Obviously, you have all of this right here, and then you have kind of a CGE practice widget. But then again, we also have the computer lab that you can use. And there's stuff on K-Drive and Moodle. For the reading skills CGE test, where's the reading? Somewhere. There we go. For the reading skills test, you have a presentation that breaks down some of the different ways that you can sort of teach skimming. You've got some practice, and then you've got some other practice here at the end that you can work on. And then we also have stuff on the K-Drive and on Moodle. And then in the lab, we have classroom activities and the practice exam. I think, Whether or not we meet in a computer lab for our meeting, we will try to show you exactly what we mean by the classroom activities. They can be a bit tricky to find, but they are extremely useful because they mimic both the format and the content of the CGE, but not in a practice test sort of way. So they're a little bit easier for you to break down and help your students work through. The CWG, that's on you. Obviously, everybody's got the things that they like to do. I do presentations, and I save all of it into one grade, and so they do one thing for the CWG. Other teachers will break this down and do sort of vocab tests, or maybe not vocab tests, but spelling tests, sort of more isolated speaking, things like that. There's tons of ideas out there. You can ask Glennis for some ideas. You can look in the handbook as well. For the final exam, we have the mock final, of course, and I'm going to try and put some stuff on Moodle as well. But there is one thing that I want to point out in the iBook. At the end of every listening and every reading, there is a final exam focus. And those questions have been written by the exam committee. So, Glennis and Kenyon and Constance, the same people that write the exams, so you can sort of almost hear their voices come through with some of those questions. And I find those practices to be really invaluable because they match almost exactly the format of the final exam. So it's an excellent way to get practice for the final exam without doing one large, heavy, final exam practice. You can break that up during the quarter to help your students get through it. And then just some thoughts that we've learned, after teaching this for a little while. Vocab is worth 20% of the integrated skills course, and students love it because it's studyable. It's concrete. They can sit down and they can run through the flashcards. Because of that, and because you can see sort of tangible benefits and you can see progress, there's a tendency to focus on vocab, and it is generally the skill that students, or the part of the course that students are strongest with. We just generally caution to be a little bit careful spending too much time on the vocab, because it is a skill that students can work on out of class, perhaps more easily than the reading and the listening. So we try to encourage teachers to make sure that students are self-accessing their vocab words. Reading is also worth 20%, 10% on the final, and 5% for the reading skills test. Time on text. I remember a stat that I saw back in the U.S. and it was talking about younger students and native speakers, but they were saying for a student to progress from one reading grade level to the next, they had to read about 1 million words. It's just time on text, and that's. Is it the biggest challenge at UAEU? I don't know, but I can guarantee you that students are not getting enough time. Actually just reading. So if you figure out a way to change that, if you figure out a way to motivate your students and get it done, share it with the rest of the group, please. Listening is also 10%. That's, exclusively on the final exam. So there are no listening assessments until the final. And because of that, it can be rather tempting to sort of shunt listening off to the side. But generally, one of the things that we found is that spelling is atrocious. It's very, very weak. And as they move, from level 3, hopefully to level 4, roughly 50% of the questions on the IELTS exams are going to require students to spell a word that they hear. So if you invest a little bit of time in spelling now, you might not see the, big dividends in your course, but you might be doing the students a big favor as they try to get out of the foundation program. Speaking is 5% at least. It tends to be an afterthought. It's like a Thursday activity sometimes. But please do try to focus on that, and please think about ways that you can help your students improve. That has been a very brief run-through of Level 3. As I mentioned, Glennis and I will have a meeting, hopefully more of a question and answer session than anything else. And of course, like I said, we're always around, and we're always willing to help, and we look forward to working with you this quarter. Thanks.